a lot of people, like, I've always been a fan. I've been a fan of professional wrestling my whole life, and then started stand-up comedy whenever I was very young. And from the very start, people have always kind of weirdly said that there's a lot of similarities between professional wrestling and stand-up comedy, even though they couldn't be, I guess, two more different art forms at a glance. What's your kind of take on that? And do you agree that there's a lot of similarities?
Yeah, the similarities that come across my mind are like your agenda. Like before a match, I visualize the match. And when I visualize it, the crowd is reacting a certain way to my efforts, very much in the same way as like when I'm writing material to get up on stage. That part is very similar. It's different, of course, because you're not getting hit in the head with a chair.
Of course, yeah.
It's very much way, way easier. Like a lot of times when I get up on stage, I haven't done it in several months. And so if I'm going to do it, but then it might just be once, or it might be like 5 times over a weekend, whatever. So the first time, very similar to a wrestling match. Before I go out there, I mean, I do have my nerves are present, and I'm hoping not to fuck up, you know what I mean? So that's similar too, because that's the drive inside, the perfectionist, that allows someone to be a champion or to be at their best probably too, to different degrees. But
yeah.
So that's something that's definitely very similar. And Katie and I were talking the other day, and I have a fascination with mobsters. That's just
Okay.
like that's my go-to. Like when I was a kid, I was way into comic books, Greek mythology for a while, and for the last I don't know, maybe it's been 10 years. It's been a while. I spend a lot of time, like every week, reading, watching documentaries, usually stuff I've already seen, but then you go back and watch it again, and now you know so much more that you're looking at it from a different perspective, but La Cosa Nostra and the Associates. Anyway, I was just saying, I wonder why I'm so fascinated by it. I think that a lot of it is because they're so cold-hearted, you know what I mean? Like they will kill their brother or their father if the job calls for it. If I like hit a squirrel with my car, I'm going to feel bad. I might pull over, I'll probably cry. So
yeah,
I think that has a lot to do with the fascination, but something else that we realized that, like, I'll never forget, this was like an enlightenment, where I was like, that makes so much sense. A lot of wrestlers seem to date strippers. And we always, said, why is it, here there's similarities, between stripping and wrestling, and you're entertaining, and putting on a front for the, getting into a character, but here's the thing that, like, I can't look at this any other way now that I've thought about this, but wrestlers and strippers and mobsters and a lot of entertainers, they're all people from the streets. You know what I mean? So like a lot of people don't know the streets and they never leave their hometown, whatever. People that make their living being out in the clubs every night or whatever, that is a certain, that you can draw a line there, you know what I mean? And count us as street people.
There's definitely I think too, one thing that I thought from like listening to interviews with wrestlers and kind of whenever they're, allowing themselves to be vulnerable and introspective, there's an obsession that's been deep rooted since they started with the business and with everything they do. And I think stand-up comedy is very similar in that, these people are obsessed with what they do.
Sure, yeah. And yeah, I mean, it takes a certain kind of person, to even go for it and chase their dreams compared to the status quo, that'll just have to live vicariously through them. So you can separate what kind of people would do it and what people, might not. But it's an outlet, for all of us, whatever it is that we do, it's an outlet to express ourselves. And obviously we're artists to some extent because we want to express ourselves, with the right picture, and and so that's something with actors, singers, comedians, wrestlers, whatever. I think that's very true. It's an outlet, and the more we can express ourselves the way we want to, at least for me, that's something, like being one of a kind, being a nonconformist like I am. It's always been important for me because my values are different than other people's. And as a kid, you're taught that that's bad,
Mm-hmm.
like, why are you wearing those pants? Those are stupid. You know what I mean? That's childhood mentality, but also it's locker room mentality. And so
Yeah.
like to grow up, I had to like kind of get out of that to be like, hey, you know what? I got my values. You got your values. That's fine. Who am I to tell you that your favorite color is a bad choice? But people are like that. And so sometimes when I'm acting and I'm portraying somebody else and their feelings, sometimes I don't enjoy it as much as being able to create my expression of my own thoughts and perspective. That's what's really cool about stand-up comedy.
Yeah, it's like you're exploring your own conscious thoughts and then saying them to a room full of strangers and seeing if they agree with you.
Yeah, yeah, and really, like some people are like, said they could never ever do that, get up there, and it's like, what's the worst that could happen? They think you're an asshole. They think you're not funny. It's not who gives a fuck. You got to if you're past the who gives a fuck, then it's pretty easy. And I'm usually about as excited as I am right now when I'm on stage, just because I'm RVD. So of course I'm cool and confident, comfortable, collected, and super dry. So this is my delivery right here,
Yeah.
saying shit I think is funny. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's like, and it's interesting to think actually about. I'm very interested in what you said about the kind of non-conformist in you, and from a young age, you kind of just didn't really take heed of the opinions of others. Um, have you you've always been like that? So I think for someone who like is recently starting to do like online sketches and videos and stuff like this, where you're putting yourself out there to an audience, and I've kind of struggled with the whole thing of like going out of my way sometimes to read, there's like 1,000 good comments, but there's always that one person that really tears into you and tries to bring you down. What advice would you have for me personally on that level in terms of dealing with people that, might talk shit about what you do or anything like that?
Well, okay, so take the comment, process it, think, is there any validity to it? Is there something that maybe I should change in a way that was inspired by this guy's comment? And if not, he's a dipshit. He's one guy out of 100. Fuck him.
Yeah.
But you gotta, as long as I heard something a long time ago. Tom Garland told me that was passed down some stand-up comedy role. He said, if you know that something's funny, like in your heart, like you really know that it's funny, and you don't say it on stage, then you're a bitch.
Yeah. That's poetic.
Yeah. So, I mean, I took that to be like, to mean, like stand behind your own judgment, when it's right to, you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
have,
absolutely.
my sense of humor, comedy style, is referred to as intelligent humor. Like sometimes it might make people think a little bit, and because of that, especially depending on where I'm touring, if I'm like in the South where people are a little bit slow, then I know they're appreciating it and they're not heckling me, but at the same time, I know that some of them are like, what? And it
Yeah.
could be whatever is funny to me at the moment. I'll be like, hey, who, anybody feel like not clapping tonight? Let me hear by round of applause. And, sometimes to me, that might be funny at the moment. And if a couple of people laugh, and other people are looking at me like, what? And I'm okay with that sometimes if I thought it was funny. I'm just up there being myself anyway, I
That's
don't
great,
get
man.
into characters and scream and whatever. I look at techniques. You look at everyone else, they got techniques, they got go-tos. Like Fluffy does the cartoon character voice, guaranteed pop, and I pretty much don't, because I was inspired by comedians like that were just really dry and just pointed out shit in life, or talked about their experiences, knowing everybody can relate to it, and and seeing it from a funny point of view. I liked, I still do, Stephen Wright.
Oh yes,
He's
yes.
love Stephen Wright, and um, Mitch Hedberg.
Mitch
Love
Hedberg.
Hedberg. Yeah, I feel like I would have been friends with him if he was alive, but he was already dead before I heard of him. And I grew up watching Bob Newhart, and other kids like in school, like the ones that are really loud and obnoxious that need the attention all the time, that would probably turn me off and make me, want to avoid that energy. So I feel the same way about loud comedians. Like, hey, good for you that people laugh, when you're screaming and shit. That's, good for you. You're committed to your character and craft, but it might not be my taste,
Mm-hmm.
So we all have that right for preference.
Well, I wanted to get into as well, like, just when you're talking about kind of the process of, getting into something and chasing a passion and going after what you actually want out of life. For you, I guess, with wrestling, would you say it started with the Chopsocky Theater whenever you were watching the action movies once a week?
You could put it's hard to say where you could put a starting point, but that was definitely a big part of it. It was like on Top Soccer Theater, they would put English voices over the Asian martial arts films. And I thought, yeah, it made me want to do that stuff. Like, I'd watch it, and then I'd go outside and I'd run up a tree and learn how to do a backflip from running up a tree and stuff. And that was what I was drawn to. I think that people are drawn to different things in life, and if they pay attention to what they're turned on by and what they're turned off to, I think they can make their life a lot more pleasant, easier to get through life, and more favorable towards your condition, your preferences.
So was it a case of you were at the theater and you were watching like these martial arts movies, and for whatever reason, it just activated that part in your brain? Did you then naturally kind of take that and, see about kickboxing and try and get involved in that first, and then eventually on a professional wrestling? Was that always kind of like the way you were going in your brain?
I think it was all a progression, and it had to do more with being a showman than knowing exactly where the outlet was going to be. I was a show off. I remember doing some of my first flips on a diving board. It was a
Okay.
public diving board, so there'd be girls and other friends around, public people, and I was at this pool every fucking day, in the summer, and I got really, really good at doing tricks. Like, if everyone else was doing a flip and a half, I had to learn how to do two flips. Just got to stay tucked, two flips. Everyone else doing a back flip, I had to do a back flip and a half. So I was already like extreme. I remember one spot that I did. It was a long diving board, and I'd walk out towards the end of the diving board, and I'd drop down to my thighs and bounce off my thighs into a handstand. And then if I wasn't at the very end, then I'd walk a couple steps to it and then do like a flip off my hands into it, try not to hit my head on the board. And so, but it was about showing off. I did this before I ever even watched wrestling. It was around that time, and it was the same group of people at the pool, at the campground that we went to, that pulled me inside one time and turned me on to wrestling. I didn't know that I was going to be a wrestler, but I got hooked into the storylines and stuff. But the flips, pretty soon there's this girl that was in gymnastics class, and she was saying, "Oh yeah, backflips are easy," and she did one off of the fence, and that was just like it just completely passed the line in my mind where, like, whoa, I can do flips without water. And then it was amazing. Yeah. And I had a friend, Dango, who were best friends, very competitive all throughout life. And pretty soon we're doing backflips off everything, off cars and off of, like short walls. And eventually I did one off the roof of my school, which got really, a lot of infamy, and I got in trouble for that.
Oh
But
yes, yes.
yeah, but that was like, it was just all about showing off. Someone put the seed in my head at my very first wrestling match. that I went to watch. My first WWF match at the Battle Creek College Center. Someone said to me, you know, you like wrestling so much, you should like lift weights. And when you're 18, you get into wrestling. And that's the first time I think that I ever even thought of it. You know, I knew I was a show off, and you know, and I could do flips and stuff, but it was actually because me and my friends wanted to get inside this ring to work out and wrestle, because we were doing it on the living room floor on cushions and stuff. And there was a guy that had a ring in town, and we went to see him to, hey, can we get in your ring and wrestle? You know, we're gonna be wrestlers when we grow up. And he was a kickboxer. Said, sure, come on Wednesday. I had to go through all the kickboxing class, stretching, drills, sparring. And then after the kickboxers went home, then the wrestlers could have the ring for the rest of the night. Now that it's getting dark and we're getting bitten up by mosquitoes. But that's how I got into martial arts, was I was knocking everybody out, and I was able to absorb a lot of punishment. So I started pursuing that, you know, like there was 3 dojos in Battle Creek that taught martial arts. So I went to all of them and got friendly with the instructors and shit, so I could work out without paying and shit. And then there was a point where I was training with the original Sheik. I paid the tuition. I'd signed this onerous contract that said he gets a piece of any of my bookings. And this was like 2-3 months. Well, it was February. I met him in December. And we just hadn't worked out like in a week or two, whatever, wrestling. I did this tough man contest in Kalamazoo, 1991, because I started December of 90, right? Or 89. It was 1990, sorry. In 89, in December, I met the Sheik, started his school. 2 months later, in February of 90, I entered the Tough Man contest in Kalamazoo. And I was heavyweight, which sucked for me because I was just over the line. But I made it all the way to the main event, and took second place. And I remember thinking that the Sheik would be pissed if he found out about it, because I didn't have his advice, or the booking didn't go through him or whatever. But I remember in my mind, I was like, maybe I could be a pro kickboxer if the pro wrestling thing doesn't turn out. Maybe I should pursue both of these and see what happens with it, you know? But wrestling kind of worked out for me.
Is it like trippy to look back kind of like at those early stages in your life and look at how like all those, what at the time probably seemed like small enough decisions, and how they all lead you onto this path that you want to go on, obviously, and still are on?
I look at everything that way, that it's just my path, you know. I think it's a great story. I look forward to sharing my, story, autobiography style. I've been saying that for years, but I mean, it is something that I want to do, and I go with the flow, and the flow hasn't told me yet, that the time is now. But it's, when I think about things even that maybe I would change in the past, it's like, you know what, that was part of my path. People ask me, about like his marijuana like held me back, and like there's been certain circumstances where it's held me back. Overall, in the big picture,
Mm-hmm.
I can't say if it's made me, if it's pushed me forward, maybe more famous in a different way, different world, or what. All I know is that it's part of my path. I can't change it, and I think that's, we're living tomorrow's history. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great way to look at life. And even like I just got finished listening to the audiobook of the comedian Pete Holmes, and he talks about it in an interesting way, where he says he looks at life as the same way you would like a television series. So, you have really good episodes that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And then you'll have like terrible episodes, but those episodes kind of, you're looking at it and you're detached, and you look at yourself as like a main character, and you're like, fuck, how's Rob going to bounce back from this one? But then, that's how you get the later good episodes in your life.
That's true, man. That's very true. Yeah, I went through a part. People that haven't seen my documentary, a lot of them don't know, but I went through some personal shit. I got a
Hmm.
1, 2, 3 punch from life in a short amount of time in 2016. Um, and I remember feeling exactly like what you're saying. I was like I was so down and depressed. My dad had died and my dog died, and I was just so sad. And I was thinking, I know I'm gonna be okay. Like, I'm RVD. Like, people love me everywhere, and there's always gonna be opportunities everywhere. But even knowing that, it was almost like you're saying, like I was just looking at myself from a different character. Like, how the fuck am I gonna get through this? Because I feel like I almost don't care if I get through it or not right now. You know what I mean? Like, I remember
Yeah.
thinking, if someone ran at me with a knife and wanted to stab me, I don't even think I'd bother blocking it right now. I remember having thoughts like that. So I like sharing those thoughts because I realized when I do that publicly, like, so many people I connect with, and it helps them, that are going through their shit. So I love that. That's the best payback for any efforts, is just knowing, that I'm helping people. And that's the deal with RVD CBD, and and with the movie talking about concussions and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
CBDs and concussions both fall into a category of where, like, there's still a little bit shamed conversation. You know what I mean? And people aren't. They don't want the conversation to go out and people to talk about it and to learn a lot more from it. I want the opposite. I want to learn all we can about the plant. I've always said that, and now we're learning more. It's been illegal to study it, so we only knew about THC. Marijuana gets you high. Now we're, CBDs in the last few years, and now we're learning CBG, CBN. There's over 100 components to the plant, and we're just starting to look at it because it's still illegal to study it. I feel like with concussion, same thing. Like, they don't, the administration, the higher ups don't want you to talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the more we're going to learn, the more we're going to be able to fix it and move on. That's what I want. That's why I want people to see my movie Headstrong, because I want the conversation to continue. I want people to tell me about their concussions. I want us to learn. And that's why I started the CBD company, was because I read that CBG can regenerate dead brain tissue, and I've read a lot about the possibilities of CBD helping with brain damage, and it's a lot of it's related. If we get something, and by something I mean like a compound, a medicine, a product, for lack of a better term, which is my goal. It always will be till I have it, and once I have it, my goal will be to keep making it better. But I'm going to get the CBD, CBG, whatever product to help, because depression, uh, depression has taken out a lot of my friends. A lot of wrestlers have died from suicide. And they say it's from depression, that they say it was brought on from concussions. And I don't want to go out that way. And I don't want any of my friends to keep going out that way either. I think it's more with my generation than it is with the newer, which is good. But anyway, that was my drive to do the CBD company, is to find that neurological aid, and to be able to help. So that's what I still am doing. So I want to learn everything that I can about it. You know what I mean? Like, about concussions, and about if the plant is one of the answers, how it can help.
Absolutely, man. Because as you say yourself, like both marijuana and kind of like concussions, even as far as 10 years ago, it was like completely hush about both subjects. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel like with your documentary Headstrong, one thing that I noticed is like if that's what you set out to achieve in terms of people having the dialogue about concussions, then the documentary itself definitely achieved that, because it was hearing someone who worked for the company, was a hard worker, well renowned, and you open up about your own experiences, and it lets people know who are coming up through the business that these things are real and they should be talked about.
Yeah, it's very personal, which I think all documentaries should be. I think you should, after seeing a documentary about a person, you should feel like you really know them a lot more than you did. I wanted that. I was sharing, like, getting my brain scanned with me, not knowing what the results are going to be, saying, hey, hypothetically, what are we looking at here? Very personal, and in my home, and with Katie and all my friends. It's like, I knew that it was a good movie and that I was sharing some really personal experience.
Hmm.
Um, but I really didn't set out to make it a conversation piece. It was like all the feedback I started getting, everyone that watched it told me that it inspired them. And I'm like, really? And then I got used to hearing that. Like everyone was talking about how they could relate to me because, you know, they'd gone through some shit and they see I've gone through shit too. And they realize that we all have obstacles. One time, somebody came up to me at a local bar and he said, "Hey, man, I just want to tell you, man, your movie Headstrong changed my life." And I was like, "Come on, dude, seriously, it changed your life?" And he goes, "I swear." I go, "How?" You know, please tell me. I mean, I appreciate hearing that, but you know, and he said, "Well," he said, "I had something, you know, I was afraid to do. I was thinking about going for this job, but I didn't know. And I saw your movie. And I said, if RVD can overcome everything and still be the whole effing show, fuck it, I'm going to go for it." And I got the job. And I was just like, dude, that's so cool to know.
And that's from something that like you yourself physically put out into the world, and then people consume it, and you know it correlates with their own life in a certain way, and you don't even get to see the impact until they approach you at a bar, you know.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. That's why I'm telling people, like with the CBD, you know, with RVD CBD, I made some decisions and I decided I wanted to make it really strong, put extra CBD in it because you know, some pain creams, for instance, will have 500 or 750 milligrams in it. And I felt like some of us need a lot more. So I have 3,000 milligrams in my pain cream, and I had a strong menthol put into it. We went back to the table a couple of times. I said, more menthol, because I've tried so many different products. You know, that's part of the research, trying everybody's. And someone would say, "Here, try my pain cream. What do you think?" I'd rub it on. It would feel like hand lotion, right? But with mine, it's got the menthol, so it penetrates. You feel it soothing, working right away. And then 3,000 milligrams because there's no daily recommended dosage. And if you look on the internet, it'll say to take anywhere from 20 milligrams a day to 300 milligrams a day. If you're taking 300 milligrams a day, which I'm closer to that end, and you have a jar that's 500 milligrams, it's not going to last you very long. So I made this decision to make it extra strong. So I think that some people need it, and I was right. And so the reviews that I'm getting back from that are saying like, "Oh my God, you know, my grandpa has he's tried everything, you know, and he didn't believe CBD's worked, and I wanted to try your product, and you know, now it's pain free, and my grandma uses it, and well, thank you so much." And so even like that, like I didn't know what to get, but I'm getting that kind of feedback from the movie, but also from the CBD product. I'm getting people telling me that mine is different in a way that helps them, and dude, that just feels like so good. You know, it's like so much good energy. And so, like, I am putting more and more energy into that as I will continue to do.
Absolutely. What would be like the next thing looking out now that you're kind of looking at the future and thinking this is something that I'd like to achieve?
I mean, that I could see that as very vague. I'll answer it like within the RVD CBD world.
Uh-huh.
Um, we have just a few products now, like pain cream in a few different sizes and a tincture. The RVD rolling papers are getting put up on the site this week.
Nice.
Yeah, but we're gonna have CBD vapes, CBD flower, sports drinks with CBD. We're going to have THC products, but in those, you can only handle those in states where it's legal, and you have to have a license for that state. So I'm partnering with other people, somebody partners in Oklahoma, partners in Oregon, partners in California, and so forth. So you know, on 420, I was going to debut RVD THC in Colorado, but you know, the virus had other plans, so so all of that is still in the works. As far as in that world, I'm going to keep coming out with other product gummies, and you know, spreading that out. Like I want I want to have my product in stores like in every state, and I know I have enough fans to make that happen. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and so the CBD company's new, like just started, so we have a lot of growth to do. I'll be putting, I think, more time into that. Also with Impact, though, I missed a few dates here, so they're going to want to make up some dates. And I just got the booking today for the first matches that we've had since this virus started.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, in March, I had a broken rib from a match in Qatar that I had at the end of February. So I missed the March TV tapings. And they, I said, hey, I'll come in. You know what I mean? Like my ribs broke, but fuck it. I'll come in. And they said, with all this shit going on, the virus and everything, just stay home anyway. And I remember I didn't really know what they were talking about. That's how new it was. So it's been a while since, since we've wrestled, and got that coming up for the end of May anyway. And for me, it'll be the first time wrestling in front of absolutely no people.
Yes.
But I've come so close to it so many times doing indie shows and shit, And to be honest, even some Impact shows, they've had, like some pretty light crowds. So it's not going to be a whole lot different. But yeah, this will be, and I don't know for sure that I'm wrestling, I would assume when they pay me to come in, usually I'm going to have a match. They want to get their most out of me. But yeah, that'll be an experience.
I would have to assume, like tying it back to the similarities between stand-up and pro wrestling, that surely, the lighter audiences, it's a little bit of a tougher shift because there's not as much energy to draw off.
That is true for sure. And in a way that the style has changed now, the wrestling cards used to have a bit of a build up to them. And the main event had the biggest stars. People were mostly going to scream, and they were into that. They'd have warm-up matches, whatever. Now, the first match might go 20 minutes. You'll see, 4 power bombs off the top rope, 3 fucking 450s out to the crowd, you know. So because of that also, fuck yeah, people get tired. But I've never had a problem with that. I've always been an exception, you know what I mean, to everything, one of a kind. But whenever I'm in the dressing room and I have wrestlers come back after their matches, it's man, those people are fucking hard out there, like I can't get them to get off their hands or whatever. I'm usually going like laughing inside because I know when I go out there, they're all gonna be like, whole fucking show,
yeah.
Whole fucking show. And I've been on the other side of that coin too, though. I remember back in '92, I was in WCW in the Indianapolis Speedway, really big fucking arena venue. And I was out there doing the same shit, moonsaults, flips and stuff. But people didn't know who the fuck I was. And I remember like thinking the same thing, thinking like, damn, like it was really hard to, to get everyone with me. Like, there wasn't like an indie show where I've been promoted heavily for the fucking several weeks. And everyone wanted to see Sting. And I remember, having a little bit of jealousy, like, damn, man, why is he so over? And he'd go out there, whoa, and everyone was screaming it. So I remember what it's like. I put in my time, and so I don't mind, taking the veterans position on that.
Absolutely.
Crowds love retro, and crowds love history. And with wrestling, for a big part of it, they respect the time put in. Like when I was in All Japan, we'd be on a bus and we'd pull over at a rest area, we'd be unloading off the bus, and like there'd be fans out there, and I'd be out there, okay, hey, let me see, let's get a picture and stuff. I get energy from that reaction, you know what I mean? Dory Funk Jr. would step out. They'd go nuts. They were screaming at Dory. Abdul the Butcher comes out. Stan Hansen comes out. They'd go nuts. And then some of us that, been wrestling a couple years there or whatever, we didn't get the same reaction. And I realized even though those guys at that time were way past their prime and were old and shit. They just got more and more famous the longer they did it, and it was more of a thrill to see them in real life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's the nostalgia thing, isn't it? You know, everyone kind of has a soft spot for that as well in terms of anything. That's why video games get remastered, and you know.
And then if you stay current, if you're still doing it, still on the TV shows, even if it's here and there, whatever, by the time they see you, you've been such a big part of their life. They feel like they know you. You know?
Oh, absolutely. Like even with me personally, like obviously growing up in rural Ireland and, you know, being a huge fan of yours, favorite wrestler, and then listening to RVD Blog Talk Radio and
Yeah.
like listening to that. And then that was how we originally met, was after that show in Ireland. And I got to speak to you, and it was that kind of thing of like, you know, people would say never meet your heroes. And I was always just like, well, you must have really shitty heroes. This guy's great. And like I remember even being in school, and you know, you invited me on to Blog Talk Radio, and we talked about, you know, the legalization of marijuana, and I was like fucking 17 at the time. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. I used to like getting subjects that didn't necessarily relate to my guests just to get different perspectives and stuff.
yeah,
You know, it was awkward for some of them. I had Chuck Zito on there, you know, big tough guy or whatever. And instead of talking to him about shit that he would have specialized in, it was something, it was love or being honest or something. It was, you know, just something I used to enjoy, breaking celebrities down to real people, because I want to do that to myself, because I was tired of being a character, because everyone just thought I said whatever, dude, and I was like, and I was just kind of growing up at 36 or whatever in WWE. I was very immature until recently. I look at my perspective on the world and life as being like of a child.
when do you think it shifted?
What's that?
When do you think it shifted?
After going through the life change of the 2016, 2000, after going through, you know, the divorce and having like death and having to like, I got so depressed, I had to like rebuild myself, and that's what it felt like, you know, and or rebuild the life around me, I guess might be a better way to put it. And I had to also, just as advice for anyone listening, I couldn't, those times where I didn't think I could get through the day, someone gave me the best advice. They said, sometimes you just got to get through the moment. And so I started like just being in the moment, and I was like, well, I can enjoy happy moments. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
It's like just being present.
Yeah, so I started really getting into that, saying, fuck the future. I don't even care where I end up tonight. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm having fun right here at this moment, good vibes. But also, when I came out of that, man, some of the stuff that was really important to me my whole life really didn't matter anymore, like material stuff. My whole Ghost Rider collection, dude, I had like a lifelong collection of Ghost Rider statues and every action figure, everything that was made with his trademark on it, I would collect it. And all of a sudden now I was like, you know what? I'm done with that. I'm closing this whole chapter and going into this whole fucking unknown future with different priorities, you know, like same values, I think, but my priorities changed so much. I was like, yeah, I don't give a fuck to make a Ghost Rider room out of my new house, you know, when I sell this one and all that. So that definitely all of a sudden, and I imagine 5 years from now, I'll probably look at right now as being immature thoughts. But I really do like when I think back to when I was in WWE, for instance, you know, like it's just like, I just feel like, you know, I was in a competitive state of mind, which made me like, I see competitive RVD as an asshole because I'm so zenful and happy. I didn't have a chance to love anybody in the dressing room. I was like, fuck that guy, you know, I'll kick his fucking ass, man. He believes this shit, you know, or he, you know, I should, you know, he's fucking me over. I should be where he's at. It was ridiculous. And so, but I look at how I handled all that, and I handled all of it, you know, like really with the priorities of someone that was still just out of high school living their dream. I was stubborn, you know, and some of my opinions might not even been valid at the point, to the point to where to where they might not have been right all the time without thinking anything specifically. But I mean, I was always just like, man, fuck this. I'm not gonna kiss ass. I'm not gonna hang out with him. So I get a push, and in particular, somebody recently said that they thought that a lot of they read or something that I didn't get a bigger push in WWE because I turned Hunter down one time when he offered to help me with promos. And like when they said that, this was recently, they said that, at first I was like, I haven't heard of that. And then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I think that did happen. Like it was so long ago, right? Like 2006. But I think I remember like he offered, and Vince even told me, yeah, Hunter offered, if you want to, help you with your. And I remember though at the time, like I was just in such asshole young kid mode. I remember thinking, man, I'm not gonna go me, so you can say I'm one of his boys and he can get credit for it. And, I can do promos. They just don't let me say what I want to. I can't say their shit. I remember inside, like having all these thoughts that I probably would not look at the same way now. You know what I mean? And because of that, it's like I saw everything, the whole world, relationships and everything from like a much younger person's perspective. I don't know. You know how they say, like, if you get into the entertainment business when you're a kid, you stop growing at that age?
Yeah, I think yeah, I think I can slightly reconcile, not to obviously as big of a degree, but I think that like your life from when you were so young and originally got into the business, it's so hectic, it's so fast paced. You're literally living your childhood dream. Like you're getting to have an existence that few people get to ever experience on the earth. And then, when something like happens, it's kind of out of your control, and it makes you kind of sit back, and you kind of have to, as you say, build yourself up again. But what happens is you build yourself the 2.0 version. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like, dude, I'm 49 years old, and it's like I've studied at least the last several years, like since I started getting like spiritual, I think when I left around the end of WWE's first, around 2006, 2007. And I was like, here's mind, body, and spirit. Been working on my body, been working on my mind, could work on my mind more, but spirit's like such a neglected part of the Trinity. And it was like, I started like really looking into that, and that's what made me want to better myself. And so now, when I look back, I always think, man, I was an asshole, because now I'm all about peace and love, and making everything right if it's not right, not adding to it and being agitated and confrontational. But if there is an issue, I'd rather smooth it over. Hey, guys that I used to like not be able to stand just because of that mindset. Now I'm like, man, that's so awesome. He's still alive.
Yeah.
So many people have died in between. So that's definitely a lot to do with the mindset as well.
If you could go back to that kind of time and say one kind of piece of advice to yourself that you right now have heard, and you've taken it in and you've applied it to your life, but if you could go back to that time and kind of say to yourself, like sit yourself down and be like, Rob, here's the thing, what would you say?
Ooh. I think I would go back to that moment I got pulled over with the marijuana and lost the championship belts. And I would say, Rob, slow down. Is that, no, that's the cheap answer. I know. Yeah, well, let's see. Can't change the past, or I wouldn't be where we are now. I would be afraid to change anything. I think I would go back to being a fucking kid.
Mm-hmm.
When the kids, were saying, huh, you shop at Kmart, you're wearing Trex tennis shoes. Look at Robbie's shoes. Or when I had glasses and they would call me Four Eyes, or something like that. I would be like, hey, dude, everyone has their own values. It's okay. It's okay that people have values that are different from you. I think if everyone in the world accepted that, we'd get rid of most, if not all, the conflict. That it's always people having a problem with other people thinking differently than they do, and them knowing that they're right and everyone else is a fucking idiot. That I would teach myself that, and I'd be the smartest fucking kid, and I'd be able to solve every problem that came at me through life.
Absolutely, man. I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what has been, I always wanted to ask as well, what's been, because obviously, you know, RVD, at the time when I was wearing your merchandise and it said, Rob Van Dam, nobody gets higher. You know, I just thought as a child, I was like, oh yeah, it's talking about the in-ring athleticism and, you know, and now I'm like, oh shit, okay, he could have been referencing, you know, smoking joints. But I'm sure both are true, you know. But what I have to ask you is, do you have any, I have a section on my podcast where I got people to send in kind of like edible and weed stories where they maybe took it one toke too far. Do you have any stories like that that stick out to you, or maybe you've smoked with other people and they haven't been able to keep up, so to speak?
I'm always the leader. I'm never the guy that can't keep up. But yeah, but by the way, that's the good thing about a double entendre, you know, is it's like everyone can get whatever they want out of it, and everyone's going to get their own meaning and perspective out of everything anyway. You know what I mean? So it's great if kids liked it for one reason, and then other people did a little, you know, chuckle at it, tongue-in-cheek humor, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, and perception is reality. So whatever anybody thinks, that's their reality anyway, which is what I was saying about the values. All right, how about this? No, I don't want to tell that story. Let's see. I'll try and stick to marijuana. I was gonna go with some other drugs. Whew. I have like so many marijuana stories to choose from that for a while I've considered making a book of just marijuana busts.
Oh yeah, people would love that.
So many. Let me choose one that I can share with you. Whoa. All right. One time I was in Texas and I was driving. Sean Stasiak was riding with me in the passenger seat. He didn't smoke. I'm burning a joint while I'm driving, and it's so hot out in the fucking desert. Nothing but desert. It's so hot. And I look and I see the lights go on. And I'm like, fuck. You know, and I'm speeding. Like, I was so careless back then. I didn't even pay attention to the speed limit. You know what I mean? It wasn't even a factor that I put into the equation. I was just like, I'm behind the wheel. Fuck it, I'm doing what I want. So many times. But man, this redneck cop got out, and he came up, you know, and I had thrown the joint out, you know, and he says to me, you know, I pulled you over because you're speeding and whatever. And he asked where we're going and shit, and then he said, you know, you guys, I smell marijuana. You guys are smoking marijuana? And I'm like, no. And he's like, I smell marijuana. I know you guys are smoking. And like, you know, finally I ended up saying, you know what? I lit up. Someone gave me a joint, you know. The Dudley boys gave me this joint, Bubba Dudley.
Yvonne, get the joint.
And you know, I just lit it up when I saw the lights, and I threw it out, you know. And he's like, and he says, you think that's a good idea? He says, you're a wrestler, huh? I said, yeah. He said, you think it's a good idea to wrestle when you're high on marijuana? I said, no, it's a horrible idea. And he says, you're driving while you're high? You think that's a good idea? I said, I'm not high. I just lit it up and threw it out. You know, he goes, He goes, where's the rest of the marijuana? I was like, fuck. And so he pulled me back behind the car, so I'm between my car and his car, melting in the parking lot because it's so fucking hot. And he's saying, now look, I know you have some marijuana on you. He goes, you best just tell me where it is. I said, I told you we don't have any marijuana. He goes, He goes, well, it's a felony here in Texas to have marijuana. I know how in California things are different. He goes, here, you got one joint, you go straight to jail. He goes, now, you sure you don't want to tell me? He goes, where's the marijuana? I said, I go, come on, dude. I told you I don't have any. He goes, He goes, what's in your pouch there? And he was referring to this fanny pack that I had on where I had marijuana. And I was just like, oh my God. I was just melting. Stick to your story, dude. Stick to your story. And the back, they had the main compartment of the fanny pack, and they had the little zipper compartment in the back. And he goes, tell me what's in there. And I was like, fuck. So I put my thumbs over the zipper, hoping he wouldn't see it, and just flipped open the main part. And he was like, you got a wallet, you got a cell phone. What's that right there? I go, vitamins. He goes, you got any steroids in there? I said, no, they're vitamins. He goes, oh, you don't do steroids? I'm like, no. He goes, what's that? It's eye drops. I have contacts. He goes, okay. And he says, why don't you pop open the trunk for me? And I was like, oh my God. And so I zipped it up, and I went in and I popped the trunk back open. And he says, I'm going to find where it is. I'm going to go through all your stuff and I'm going to find where the marijuana is. You should just tell me where it is. And I said, I told you there was one joint that I lit up and I threw it out the window. That's all that I had. He goes, He goes, I got a little friend about this tall, and he puts his hand down by his, between his knees and his waist. He said, would love to meet you. And I said, yeah. And he goes, hold on a second. And then he went and he sat in his car and just left me there to die, right? And I'm like, is he talking about a dog? Maybe he's talking about a canine, right? I think, maybe. He would love to meet me. And he's in there just looking at me through the window, and I'm sweating. I got the trunk open. I got the pouch with my weed in it. And I don't know what the fuck he's doing. He's on the check-in, whatever. And it seemed to take forever. And then he comes back over after all that. Then he says, okay, he says, he says, where's the marijuana? I said, I don't have any. He said, okay, so you're telling me there's no marijuana in that trunk. If I look, I'm not going to find any. I said, right. He said, okay. He said, tell you what. He said, why don't you open up that pouch again? And now, I was just dead inside. I was like, he knows about he knows he's fucking with me. But I did the same thing. I put my thumbs over the zipper. I opened it up. I said, look, it's the fucking license, the cell phone, the eye drops, the vitamins. He goes, He goes, you tell me you don't have any more marijuana. I said, yes, that's what I'm telling you. He goes, He looked at me and goes, tell you what, he goes, I believe you. And I said, oh my God. And he said, why don't you get back in your car? And I don't remember if he wrote me a citation for speeding, to be honest. Like I was like, so like my brain was just like, so like flooded with thoughts and blood and emotion. And he let me go. He said, I believe you. He said, you be more careful. And he said, next time someone wants to give you some marijuana, you better think twice about it. So you bet I will. And I got in the car. And I fucking like waited till he passed me, and I'm like, oh my God, that was so fucking crazy. And I fucking pulled out, reached in, grabbed out my joint that I had in the zipper compartment, lit up. Yeah.
No lesson learned whatsoever. I love it.
Not then. No, it took a long time till I finally learned. And what I really learned was just to move somewhere where it's legal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's
the important thing out of this.
Well, that was actually when I moved to California. That was the first time that I was able to smoke and actually enjoy it, because in Northern Ireland, smoking it, you had just the Catholic guilt getting to you. It's like it's the devil's lettuce. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Amsterdam was the first for me. We're sitting out on the sidewalk in front of the Bulldog Cafe at their tables smoking, and families are walking by with kids, and they're not looking at us like we're disgusting,
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why, when I used to advocate, because I always knew that the world should be like that, or at least in my opinion, it definitely should have been backwards from where it was, because people were smoking cigarettes, pot shaming me. And I was like, cigarettes are filled with poison. They kill 1 out of 2 long-term smokers. Marijuana's never killed anybody. And so when I went to Amsterdam, some of the coffee shops where you go in to smoke, they don't let you smoke tobacco in there. I was like, these are my people. They get it.
Yeah.
They would, some of them, they say, if you're going to put tobacco in your weed, which is something they like to do in Europe, they have special aquariums, like glassed off partitions, so the rest of us don't have to die inhaling their poison while we're medicating. So I was like, man, you know, these people get it. Hopefully the world will catch up.
Do you have a particular like food you like to go for whenever you're smoking?
No, I mean, I smoke a lot, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do everything smoking. So I can't, any question I can answer yes. If someone says, you ever smoke and work out? You know, do you ever smoke? Yes. So, you know, we have this sponsor, Trifecta Meals, and we're very fortunate. They deliver us a box or a couple of boxes a week, especially right now with, you know, being quarantined.
Mm-hmm.
We open up our front door. There's a box of meals that are already made, pop in the microwave for 3 minutes, and they're healthy. So that's a huge part of our diet.
I feel like for me, the one that I go for is because I'm like a blue moon smoker. Like I'll smoke occasionally. And for me, it's definitely the first time that I had cheesecake stoned. It was like one of those YouTube videos of like blind guy sees for the first time in 48 years.
Right. Yeah. It was very good, huh?
A magical experience. That's the thing I miss most about America, actually, is the Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah. Oh, you don't have that?
No, we don't have that. No.
See, wish I could bring one up and open it up and make the next $1 billion.
Honestly, I feel like that is a $1 million idea waiting to happen.
If only it was that easy.
But listen, man, I really appreciate you doing this. And like from just kind of, you were the first real, you know, role model essentially that I had. And, you know, even to this day, it's like my kind of like Mount Rushmore of who I look up to. There's an RVD there forever. And I really appreciate you taking the time and, you know, doing this with me.
Cool, man. Appreciate you, Aaron. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Good conversation. I wish you well with the podcast.
Thank you so much, dude. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Check out rvdcbd.com and, you know, follow me at The Real RVD everywhere.
Laters, dude.
Awesome, dude. Have a great day.